Welcome back to G Fun Facts Online. Today we are diving into a detective story that has taken over 1,000 years to solve. It is a story about one of the most beautiful and expensive objects ever created, a story about hidden secrets, and a story about the very human fear of making a mistake. We are talking about the Blue Qur'an. If you have never seen an image of this manuscript, try to picture this in your mind. Imagine the deep azure color of a twilight sky, that specific dark blue right before the stars come out. Now imagine capturing that color on parchment. Then, imagine writing on that dark blue surface not with ink, but with gold. Letters that shimmer like constellations against the dark. For centuries, art historians, collectors, and museum goers have looked at the Blue Qur'an and seen only perfection. It is widely considered one of the most enigmatic and luxurious manuscripts in the history of Islamic art. It is a masterpiece of Kufic script, geometric precision, and unlimited budget. But recently, that illusion of effortless perfection was shattered. Researchers at the Zayed National Museum in Abu Dhabi used advanced technology to look beneath the gold and the indigo, and they found something the original scribes tried desperately to hide. They found a mistake, and the way they fixed that mistake tells us more about the economics and the humanity of the medieval world than 1,000 perfect pages ever could. So let's get into the details. First, we need to understand exactly what this object is and why it is such an anomaly. In the world of early Islamic manuscripts, the standard was fairly consistent. You had parchment, which was typically cream or off-white, and you had ink, which was black or brown. The Blue Qur'an, however, broke every single rule. Its pages were dyed a deep, rich indigo. This was a color associated with the heavens, with royalty, and with the infinite. Upon this dark background, the text was written entirely in gold, a technique known as chrysography. To make the letters pop against the blue, they were outlined in black. The verse markers were silver rosettes. Today, those silver markers have oxidized and turned black, but when this book was new, they would have sparkled like stars. This color palette, the gold on blue, was likely a direct aesthetic response to the imperial purple manuscripts of the Byzantine Empire. Think of famous works like the Rossano Gospels or the Vienna Genesis. By creating the Blue Qur'an, the creators were making a statement of cultural power. They were saying, we too can produce holy texts of imperial splendor. But where did it come from? This is where the mystery begins. For a century, scholars have argued over its origins. There are three main theories. The most widely accepted theory is the Tunisian theory. This suggests the manuscript was produced in Kairouan, in modern-day Tunisia, during the 9th or 10th century, perhaps under the Fatimids or the Aghrabids. This is supported by the fact that the bulk of the surviving pages were found in the library of the Great Mosque of Kairouan. Then there is the Spanish theory. Some scholars argue it was made in Córdoba, Spain, under the Umayyad Caliphate. The Umayyads had a history of using dyed parchment, and the artistic rivalry with Byzantium was particularly strong there. Finally, there is the Abbasid theory, which suggests it came from Baghdad, the heart of the Abbasid Empire, arguing that only the caliph there could afford such a lavish production. And when we say lavish, we mean it. Originally, this manuscript contained about 600 pages split into 7 volumes. Today, only about 100 pages survive, scattered in museums and private collections from the Met in New York to the Museum of Islamic Art in Doha, and of course, the Zayed National Museum in Abu Dhabi. To truly appreciate the discovery we are discussing today, we have to talk about the economics of this masterpiece. We need to talk about the cost of failure. In the 9th century, producing a book was not like printing a paperback today. It was an industrial undertaking involving entire herds of animals and trade networks spanning continents. Let's break down the materials. First, the parchment. The Blue Qur'an is written on sheepskin. To produce a 600-page manuscript of this size, hundreds of sheep had to be slaughtered. Their skins had to be cleaned, stretched, scraped, and prepared. Then, consider the indigo dye. Dyeing parchment is notoriously difficult. Unlike cloth, skin does not absorb dye easily. If you soak it too long, it ruins the texture of the parchment. If you soak it too little, it looks patchy and cheap. The artisans who created the blue Qur'an achieved a uniform, saturated color that suggests a master-level technique, possibly rubbing the dye in rather than soaking it. Indigo itself was a cash crop, imported from India or the Levant. And finally, the gold. Every letter was a deposit of precious metal, either gold leaf or gold powder, suspended in a solution. So imagine the consequences of error. Imagine you are a scribe in the 9th century. You are working on a sheet of vellum that has already been processed from a sheep, dyed with expensive imported indigo, and smoothed to perfection. You are writing with liquid gold. And then you make a mistake. You skip a word, or, even worse, you get distracted by the hypnotic rhythm of the text, and you repeat a verse you just wrote. In a normal manuscript with black ink on white paper, you might scrape the ink off with a knife. But you cannot scrape gold off indigo-dyed parchment. If you try, you will leave a hideous pale scar where the dye has been removed. You cannot simply erase it. And you certainly cannot throw the page away. That single sheet represents the skin of an animal and weeks of labor. It is simply too valuable to discard. So what do? You get creative. This is where modern science comes into the picture. For 1,000 years, the creative solutions of the blue Qur'an scribes remained invisible to the naked eye. But researchers at the Zayed National Museum in Abu Dhabi decided to look closer using multispectral imaging, or MSI. This technology was originally developed for space exploration and satellite imagery, but it has become the X-ray vision of archaeology. Here is how it works. Different materials reflect and absorb light differently at different wavelengths. The human eye only sees a tiny fraction of the light spectrum. But MSI photographs the object under different bands of light, from deep ultraviolet to near infrared. Ultraviolet light can make certain organic materials fluoresce, revealing where the surface was disturbed. Infrared light has longer wavelengths that can penetrate thin layers of paint or pigment. Carbon-based inks, like the black outlines of the Kufic script, often absorb infrared light, appearing black even if they are covered by a pigment that is transparent to infrared. By processing these images digitally, researchers can effectively see through the surface decoration. In preparation for the opening of the Zayed National Museum, researchers turned this high-tech gaze upon 5 pages of the Blue Qur'an in their collection. They were originally just looking for details on pigment composition and condition. But on one particular page, they found a secret. To the naked eye, the page features a beautiful, intricate band of gold ornamentation. It is a decorative frieze, the kind often used to mark the division between surahs or chapters. It looks like a deliberate aesthetic choice, a moment of artistic pause in the flow of text. But when the MSI sensors scanned that gold band, the computer screen lit up with ghosts. Underneath the gold decoration, there was text. The imaging revealed the faint, spectral outlines of Kufic letters that had been painted over. The researchers deciphered the hidden words and realized they were verses from Surat al-Nisa, the women. So why was the text covered? The researchers analyzed the sequence of the verses and realized the nature of the secret. The scribe had made a transcription error. Specifically, it appears the scribe had likely duplicated a passage. In the intense focus required to copy holy text, the scribe's eye likely drifted back to the wrong line, and he began writing verses he had already inscribed. Realizing the mistake, the scribe faced that economic dilemma we mentioned earlier. Option A was to scrap the expensive indigo sheepskin, which would be a financial disaster. Option B was to scrape it off, which would be an aesthetic disaster. So he chose option C, camouflage. The scribe, or perhaps the illuminator, working with him, took the expensive mistake and turned it into art. They painted over the erroneous verses with a thick, elaborate band of gold arabesque patterns. They transformed a blunder into beauty. Technically, this makes this page of the Blue Qur'an a palimpsest. A palimpsest is a manuscript page from which text has been scraped or washed off to be used again. However, usually palimpsests are created to save parchment for a completely new book. For example, erasing an old administrative text to write a prayer book. Here the motivation was different. It was an aesthetic rescue mission. The researchers at the museum noted that this practice is exceptionally rare in Islamic manuscripts of this period. In later centuries, scribes might cross out text or draw a red line through mistakes. But in the 9th century, on a project of this holiness and imperial grandeur, a crossed-out line was unacceptable. The perfection of the visual field was paramount. The text had to look flawless, even if it meant burying the Word of God under a layer of gold to maintain the visual rhythm. This discovery has massive implications for art history. First, it helps with dating and location clues. The style of the cover-up decoration can help solve the mystery of the Blue Qur'an's origin. If the floral motifs in the correction band match architectural decorations in the Great Mosque of Kairouan, it strengthens the Tunisian theory. If they look like Umayyad motifs from Cordoba, it swings the pendulum to Spain. Art historians will now be scrutinizing these revealed patterns closely. Second, it helps us understand workshop practices. We now know that the production of the Blue Qur'an involved a high degree of quality control. It wasn't just one person writing in isolation. There was likely a supervisor reviewing the pages. The error was caught before the book was bound, and the decision to cover it was made. This implies a sophisticated workshop structure with oversight, budget management, and a hierarchy of artisans. And finally, it raises the question of the invisible library. What else is hidden? There are roughly 100 surviving pages of the Blue Qur'an. How many other decorative bands are actually mistakes in disguise? How many other gold medallions hide slip-ups? This research opens the door for every other museum holding a folio, from the Met to the Aga Khan Museum, to scan their pages. We might find that the Blue Qur'an is full of these hidden corrections, a map of human error concealed within a divine text. The work done by the Zayed National Museum is part of a broader renaissance in the study of Islamic heritage. For a long time, the study of these manuscripts was limited to what could be seen with the naked eye. Now, science is allowing us to interrogate the chemistry of the art. Alongside the hidden text, researchers are using spectroscopy to analyze the gold and the indigo. They are trying to determine if the indigo is from woad grown in Europe or North Africa, or true indigo from India. This chemical fingerprint could finally settle the debate on where the manuscript was made. It also affects conservation. Knowing there is hidden ink under the gold affects how conservators treat the page. If the gold leaf cracks, they now know there is another layer of history underneath that must be preserved. There is a profound irony in these findings. For 1,000 years, the scribes succeeded. They hid their mistake. They presented the world with a flawless facade of indigo and gold. They wanted us to see only the perfection of the Qur'an. But in uncovering their error, we have actually come to appreciate the manuscript more. The Blue Qur'an is no longer just a static object of beauty. It is a frozen moment of decision-making. We can see the scribes' panic at the mistake, the calculation of the cost, the decision to cover it, and the careful application of the gold leaf to make it right. The multispectral imaging has not diminished the mystery of the Blue Qur'an. It has deepened it. It has reminded us that even in the creation of the most sacred and expensive objects in human history, the hand that holds the pen is human. And there is something deeply beautiful about that. As these pages go on display at the Zayed National Museum, visitors will see them differently. They will see the gold letters shining on the blue vellum, but they will also know that beneath that surface lies a secret, a silent testament to the effort, the struggle, and the ingenuity required to touch the divine. Thanks for listening to G Fun Facts Online.